Welcome to Once Upon English.
Welcome, my friend. Wherever you are, I want to tell you a story. Not just about love, but about the thin line between desire and destruction. It's a tale whispered through centuries, carried by those who believed they understood passion until it consumed them. So stay close and listen with your heart, because some stories don't just entertain us, they expose us. He broke every heart in Seville and laughed at God. He thought himself untouchable, a name women whispered at night and men cursed at dawn. But one night, a single choice pulled him toward a table he never should have set. Tonight, you will meet the man who loved like a storm, and the woman whose silence became his fate. This is Don Juan. This is the moment his legend meets the truth. Stay with us, because what happens next will change everything you think you know about love. The beginning of a dangerous legend. In the golden age of Spain, when the streets of Seville glowed under the soft light of oil lamps, there was a name whispered in every corner: Don Juan Tenorio. He was not just a man, he was a legend, a shadow, a danger, and a dream, all in one. Don Juan was young, handsome, and charming. But behind his beautiful smile, there lived a restless heart, a heart that loved the thrill of the forbidden. He had one passion: to win every woman's heart he met. For him, love was not a sacred emotion. It was a game, a challenge, and a victory to collect. Noble ladies, servants, nuns, widows, no one was safe from his charm. He would promise love, whisper sweet words under the moonlight, and disappear before sunrise, leaving behind only broken hearts and tears. Yet Don Juan never saw himself as evil. He thought life was short, and joy was all that mattered. "Heaven can wait," he once said. "Tonight, I live." But destiny never lets arrogance go unpunished. One night, during the celebration of All Saints' Day, Don Juan made a dangerous bet with another nobleman, Don Luis Mejia. They argued about who was the greater lover, the braver seducer, the true master of hearts. Their bet was outrageous. In 1 year, they would see who could conquer more women, break more hearts, and cause more scandal. When the year passed, they met again in a dark tavern near the river Guadalquivir. The air was thick with smoke, wine, and whispers. Both men laughed, proud of their sinful achievements. But Don Juan was not satisfied. His pride demanded more. He said coldly, "I have taken more hearts than you, Don Luis. And if you doubt it, I will prove it tonight by taking the heart of your bride-to-be." The tavern went silent. Even the candles seemed to tremble. Don Luis stood, furious, his face pale. "Touch her, and you die," he said. But Don Juan only smiled, that smile that could melt a heart or freeze a soul. He whispered, "Then prepare for your death." And so, a game of love turned into a game of death. That very night, Don Juan went to the home of Don Luis's fiancée, Doña Ana de Pantoja, a noblewoman of grace and innocence. Using tricks, disguises, and lies, he entered her home, pretending to be her future husband. When she discovered the truth, it was too late. Her cry of shame echoed through the night. Her father, Don Gonzalo de Ulloa, the commander of Seville, swore vengeance. He challenged Don Juan to a duel, to wash away the dishonor with blood. But Don Juan was too fast, too skilled. In the courtyard of the Ulloa mansion, under the pale moon, swords clashed. When it ended, Don Gonzalo lay dead, and Don Juan, laughing, escaped into the night. Now he was not just a seducer. He was a murderer. The city of Seville trembled with fear and anger. Don Juan had gone too far. He fled to Italy, leaving behind a trail of sorrow, scandal, and sin. Yet even far away, he could not escape his own legend. Because Don Juan was no longer just a man. He was a story that Spain would never forget. The return of the sinner. Years passed. The world changed. Kings died, wars came and went, and new lovers filled the streets of Seville. But one night, when the wind blew cold across the old bridges of the Guadalquivir, a mysterious man returned to the city he once left in flames. It was Don Juan Tenorio. His face was older, but his eyes, those dangerous burning eyes, were the same. He had lived in exile, hiding in the shadows of foreign lands, chasing pleasures that never satisfied his soul. But now something stronger than desire had called him back. The past. He wandered through the silent streets, remembering every balcony, every window, every secret kiss. But Seville no longer whispered his name with excitement, only with fear. For most people, Don Juan was no longer a legend. He was a curse. He stopped before an old stone wall and froze. Before him stood a cemetery, quiet, cold, and full of the souls he had hurt. As he walked through the tombs, the moonlight revealed something that made his heart pound. A great marble statue. The statue of Don Gonzalo de Ulloa, the man he had killed. Under it were written the words, "Here rests the man who defended his honor and died by the hand of Don Juan Tenorio." For the first time in years, Don Juan felt something strange. Guilt. He laughed bitterly and said, "So even in death you accuse me, old man?" And in his arrogance, he placed a hand on the statue's shoulder. "Come to dinner tomorrow, Commander," he said mockingly. "Let us dine together, you and I." Then he walked away, laughing into the night. But the wind seemed to whisper behind him, "Be careful what you invite." That night, Don Juan returned to his mansion, abandoned, dusty, and cold. He poured himself wine and sat before a grand table. Candles flickered, and then a sound. A slow, heavy sound. Footsteps. He turned his head and froze. The door opened by itself, and in the doorway stood the statue of Don Gonzalo, alive, or something worse than alive. Its eyes glowed with a cold, pale fire. Its voice echoed like thunder. Don Juan Tenorio, it said, you invited me to dinner. I am here. Don Juan tried to laugh, but his voice trembled. He said, so you came, even from the grave? The statue nodded. I came for what is mine, your soul. The air grew icy. The candles went out. Don Juan, proud even in terror, drew his sword. I fear no ghost, he shouted. But his sword passed through empty air. The statue raised a stone hand, touched Don Juan's shoulder, and said, there is no escape from your sins. Flames rose from the floor. Don Juan's laughter turned into screams, and in a blinding light, both figures vanished, leaving behind nothing but silence. When morning came, people found Don Juan's mansion burned to ashes. No one ever saw him again. But every year, on the night of All Saints' Day, people in Seville said they could hear laughter in the wind, the laughter of Don Juan Tenorio, the man who defied heaven and lost the redemption. The night was long. Cold wind blew through the empty streets of Seville, carrying with it the whisper of a soul that had nowhere to rest. But somewhere, between the shadows of life and death, Don Juan Tenorio opened his eyes. He was no longer in his mansion. He was standing in a strange, silent garden, half light, half darkness. The air was heavy, like time itself had stopped. He looked down at his hands. They were trembling. His sword was gone. He tried to speak, but his voice was weak. Where am I? He whispered. A soft voice answered, you stand between heaven and hell, Don Juan. He turned and saw Doña Inés, the woman who had once loved him more than anyone else. Her face was calm, her eyes full of light. She had died years ago, heartbroken by his actions, but now her spirit was there, glowing like the moon. Don Juan fell to his knees. For the first time, he had no words, no charm, no pride. Inés, he whispered, are you real? Or am I dreaming? She smiled gently. You are not dreaming. I came because you called me with your pain. Tears filled his eyes, tears he didn't know he could still cry. All my life I laughed at love, he said, and now in death, it's the only thing I wish I had truly known. Doña Inés touched his face softly. It's not too late, Don Juan. Heaven is mercy, not punishment. You must choose pride or forgiveness. He looked away, his voice breaking. I don't deserve forgiveness, she whispered. No one does, but love gives it freely. For a long moment, silence filled the air. The garden seemed to glow brighter, as if time itself was waiting. Then Don Juan took her hand, trembling, hesitant. Inés, he said, I don't ask for heaven. I only ask to be near you once more. She smiled, her eyes shining like morning light. Then you have already chosen. Suddenly, a thunderous voice echoed, the same cold voice of Don Gonzalo's statue. Don Juan Tenorio, your time is over. Flames appeared at the edge of the garden, burning brighter and closer. But Doña Inés stood before them, holding Don Juan's hand. No, she said softly. He has repented. The flames stopped, and from above a beam of pure light descended, warm, golden, peaceful. Don Juan looked at Inés one last time. So even for me, there is light, she nodded, even for you. The garden faded, the darkness melted, and in that moment, Don Juan Tenorio, the sinner, the seducer, the man who had defied heaven, was finally free. When the morning sun rose over Seville, the city was silent. But the people who passed by the old cemetery swore they heard something gentle in the wind. Not laughter this time, but a sigh of peace. If this story touched you, if you felt anger, pity, or that small, impossible hope, you've just walked inside one of Spain's oldest hearts. Don Juan's story is more than scandal and flame. It is about choices that echo long after we are gone, and the small chance of light at the end of the darkest road. If you loved this retelling, please do 3 things that help more people find stories like this. Like the video, it tells us you want more. Subscribe and click the bell so you never miss a new story every week. Comment below, which moment moved you the most? Don Juan's first smile, Doña Inés's forgiveness, or the last quiet light? Share this with someone who loves a good legend. And remember, sometimes the hardest thing to give is the simplest thing to need.